I really thought that India versus Australia last year was going to be the best test series we would see for years. Every game was a nail-biter with the series result coming in the last test. You really can't ask for much more, but only 6 months later, India with a complete new look find themselves in another outstanding series, but once again 2-1 down with a mountain to climb. Meanwhile, England obviously haven't learnt from last cycle and got dot points for slow over rates for the 15th time, but for once in my life, I actually think that England have been really hard done by. So first things first, my shorts are finally back on the channel. It's been a long, arduous, painful process, but they are finally back up. So make sure to subscribe, go watch a couple, get them back on your algorithm, and we can get the ball rolling again. Also, if you want to watch these longer videos with the flexibility of audio and video, head over to my Spotify and shoot me a rating. You can watch it there. But shorts are finally back. Thank you for being so patient with me. Now, I think I'm going to retire from making predictions on Test cricket from now on, because this series has literally had it all. From India losing after scoring 471 in the first innings, and then England chasing 370 on the last day. Then Bumrah gets rested, so you would assume that it's going to be India's toughest game. But no, Akashdeep turns into Bumrah on steroids and somehow produces insane amounts of seam on a deck that literally just had 1,400 runs scored on it. Speaking of 1,400 runs, Gill leading into this series was copping heat from pretty much every direction. Fans, media, everywhere. And I would say probably a large proportion had pretty much written him off as a captain before a ball had been bowled. Now, he is averaging 100 and has already scored 600 in 3 games. And then to top it off, Bumrah gets brought back into the side, and then India then lose again after I was 200% certain there was no way that they could lose after that third inning. Again, as a neutral fan, you really can't ask for much more. All you want is a pretty even contest between the bat and ball, and you want the games to be unpredictable. Now, if I was an England or an Indian fan, I would probably be saying the total opposite and have a resting heart rate of about 120 BPM. An even contest is only good for a neutral fan and a winning side, which I was probably a critic of after the BGT. It's so easy to say, oh, this is great cricket, or this is peak test cricket, when you haven't just been beaten or heartbroken a session away from a win. I'll be honest, as good as the cricket's been, if I was an Indian fan, I would be fuming, because I don't think there's any denying they should have wrapped up the third test pretty comfortably after doing the job with the ball. And really, they should have at least secured a draw in the first game. But instead, England won both games from pretty much unwinnable positions. Before I go into talking about India's team, which I think will be the main focus, just because I can't see England changing a whole lot other than maybe Bashir because of injury/form. But I do just want to take a moment to credit England, which I'm now realizing makes it twice in one video, so that's a little bit scary, but they do need credit. And I want to make sure, even though I think India have lost these games via self-sabotage, England have then also had the ability to chase down 350 in one day, which I really can't see any team in the world doing. And then again in the third test, trying to defend 190 when they had India 8 for 110. And I would say the pivotal moment was Bryden Cast on that fourth day, really planting that doubt into India's mind. So I think it's really funny, because even though it was a much tougher deck to bat on, it felt like the pressure was always on India in both of those games, despite them being massively ahead on paper in both of those games. When I think of BAZBALL and Ben Stokes' way of playing, the final days of both the third and the first test is exactly what I think of. A team that's united and playing without fear of the result, but also playing in a sensible manner. I think England have really learnt from their time in Pakistan last year, where I thought they kind of blurred the lines of playing confidently and playing aggressively and just playing stupid shots for the sake of being aggressive. Again, obviously the pitches in Pakistan were turning right angles, they were turning square, but you could see as soon as they were getting tied down, they almost gave up. Kind of like, if I can't hit out, if I can't put the pressure on you, I'm just going to give up. And either a few balls go for 6 and then I'm back on the front foot, or I'm getting out. And in that Pakistan series with those turning decks, they essentially just gave their wickets away. They were forcing shots. This series, although they are playing aggressive, you can see they're batting at a slower rate, which isn't a bad thing. They're just picking their balls better. They're playing smarter. Look, there's still going to be moments where they do have brain fades. Harry Brook's a good example, but overall, I think they're playing a lot smarter. They're picking their balls better and they're not forcing shots. Now, this also leads and kind of ties into attitude on the field. Normally, I don't think drop catches or 1 or 2 drop catches has a huge outcome on a series. And let me be honest, there's been plenty of drop catches. To be fair, a few on both sides. Obviously, India's had more drop catches. I mean, Jaiswal's probably close to double figures himself, but all of those drop catches aside, the general attitude on the field is absolutely night and day between the two sides. I mean, you do have to say that England have the home crowd advantage. They have the best chance in the world. The Barmy Army's going off. They create an atmosphere like no other. But India as well, in their defense, of all away fans around the world, they get the most away fans probably by far. I mean, I was at the SCG test, and I'm not joking when I say almost half the crowd was supporting India. And even then, I shouldn't really have to come up with an excuse for professionals getting paid millions of dollars to put in a real solid effort in the field. Apart from when India are on a roll and they take a few wickets quickly, or Siraj starts yelling in everyone's face, it feels like they're on a bit of a holiday out there. There's barely any positive chat. There's no urgency to get to the ball quickly. There's no urgency to cut off a quick single. Fielders are visibly upset if the bowlers bowl a bad ball. When there's a drop catch, you can see how frustrated everyone is in the field. I mean, I could go on. I'm not saying you need to be a flog and start sledging everyone and get really angry, but just look at a player like Marnus without looking at his batting average over the last few years. But look, he is like a rabbit on crack in the field, and he saves so many runs and creates pressure without bowling. Ben Stokes has kind of instilled this fight to the end mindset into the players, and I think ultimately that's probably what won the third test. I mean, they created an absolute pressure cooker in the stadium on that fourth night, and really the entire fifth day, and India just crumbled under the pressure. In terms of India not being able to do that themselves, I don't know, it might be a combination of lack of experience in the team, along with Gill also being a young and new captain, but we do see glimpses of it at times. They really get into the fight, but then it's just nowhere near enough. So India's batting. Oh, India's batting. What can I even say about it? I mean, it actually hasn't been that bad. Overall, I feel like the top six have pretty much all contributed with either a century or a half century, apart from one player, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it's just a couple of bad sessions that has really cost them. In the first test, you can't even say their second innings as a whole was bad. They scored 364. As a second innings score, that is pretty solid. The problem is that they were 4 for 333 in complete control of the game. They had that option to score quickly and then declare to give them no chance, or just bat on and not really give England time. But instead, they got rolled and just opened the game up for England. And then again in the third test, they just had this session where they lost 4 for 50 on the fourth night and just buried themselves deep into a hole. So it's really hard to criticize any individual because they're all kind of contributing. It's just almost the management as a whole batting unit. They got to stop collapsing. Now, the one player that hasn't got a score, and annoyingly the player that I wanted to get a score the most, is KARUN NAIR. I mean, all I wanted to see after eight years out of the side, years in the mud, after desperately tweeting that he wants cricket to give him a second chance, I just wanted to see him raise that bat after 8 long years. And instead, I'm pretty sure he's the only batsman in the top 6 that hasn't scored a 50, maybe for both sides as well. And if anyone's on the chopping block in India's top 6, it's probably him. And the worst part is you really can't defend it. I mean, he has looked absolutely fantastic on his way to 30. He's looked so solid, so confident in his shot. But every time you think, okay, he's done the hard yards, he's got his eye in, he's started to settle in, now he's going to start getting moving, and he just smacks one straight to the fielder. I just hope that they're nice enough to keep him until the end of the series and back him that he can produce a result. But if he doesn't get anything in these next 2 games, I can't see them hanging around with him for too long. Unfortunately, if you do take out his 300 not out, his average does look pretty abysmal. But at the end of the day, I mean, he had the form going into this series. His selection was justified. I think it's similar to a lot of Australian fans have been crying over Cameron Green's selection, which is now looking like it paid off. But initially when he was selected at 3, there was so many complaints that he was in the side. But if you want players to be picked on form, these are the players. Just because the player then gets selected and doesn't produce a result, you can't criticize the selectors for that. They're just picking a player that had the form leading into the series. So let's finish off with the juicy stuff. Who the hell is getting dropped and who needs to retire? So I guess starting with England, I think there's only one possible change that they're going to make, and it's going to be made easier now due to injury, but there's also a lot of talks over Bashir being dropped based on his performance, which I kind of have mixed feelings over. I feel really bad for him in the sense that he's only 21. So far, he's usually had to bowl on absolute roads. He's usually bowling on decks that are more pace friendly than spin friendly. He's usually bowling rotation overs while the fast bowlers are having rest, and more often than not he's bowling at set batsmen. In saying that, this is test cricket, not a community cricket club. You can't pick on emotion, and I can't defend Bashir on emotion. You have to base it on stats, and the reality is he averages 40 in tests after 20. Jesus, he's played 20 tests in just over a year and a half. Anyway, he averages 40. He averages 50 in first class. He is a proper number 11, and he can't really field. And more importantly, his strike rate, degrees of turn, and economy is also pretty shocking. So Liam Dawson has been added to the squad, so it will be interesting to see what route England go. Are they gonna stick with an all-rounder that bowls a bit of spin but can bat better just to stock up the batting? Or will they then go back to a spinner and look for a long-term spinner? I mean, it's hard to know. I always feel like you do need to have a proper spinner in your side, that at least an option that you can choose from. But I guess we'll have to see how Dawson goes next game. India are also facing a bit of an injury crisis. Akashdeep and Arshdeep have essentially been ruled out of this game, which I presume will mean Bumrah will now have to play at least this game, if not the last one as well. And then you also have Pant, who has ruined his hand. He is still not confirmed as keeper. If he isn't fit, it's most likely Jarrell will come in as keeper and Pant will play just as a sole batsman, which then makes it even harder to balance the team evenly. Oh, and then Reddy is also out for the rest of the series. So then they have to decide whether to bring in another bowling all-rounder or whether they just pick another batsman to stock the batters and make Jadeja and Sundar bowl more overs. I mean, I just confused myself saying that sentence, so I do not envy the Indian selectors. Either way, it is a pretty sticky situation for India. It is a bit of a shame, but I guess we'll just have to see what they cough up. Anyway, I'll be back in the coming days to talk about the great Australian bat-off, and then the fourth test kicks off in 2 days as well. So make sure to subscribe, go spam some shorts, and I'll see you in a few days.